Yeah, and a 40% bump up to the base rate of JobSeeker as well as the headline figure, Senator. But Jim Chalmers, he's hosed that down based on the $34 billion cost over forward estimates. He says in a statement, we can't fund every good idea. There will be measures in the May budget to address disadvantage. So something is coming. So how do you reconcile the report with his response?
The budget's tight, but budgets are tight across the country. And you talk to people who are trying to survive on these payments, and they're making really tough decisions between whether to take medicine or to be able to buy food. Like that is a tough budget decision. And so this really is about priorities as a country. Do we believe that it is important to invest in people who need the support so that we don't have a country where we've got growing inequality and all the issues that we see flow from that? You know, as a Canberran, someone who represents the ACT, to have 1 in 6 children now growing up in poverty, to me is unacceptable. We have to remember we're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So this is about priorities. And I would urge the government to prioritise people in our communities who want to be able to get their lives back together and to get back in and contribute.
There is a blowout to aged care spending as well as the NDIS. Do you accept there are other more pressing matters in the budget though?
There are a lot of pressing matters. I would argue that this is one of the most important. We're seeing, as I said, 1 in 6 children now growing up in poverty in Australia. That has, you know, even if you take the cynical view and say, well, there's no votes in raising these sorts of payments, that growing inequality has huge ramifications for everyone, for our communities and for society more broadly. So I would urge the government to really prioritise people doing it tough. And we saw during COVID where the Morrison government doubled the rate of JobSeeker, and you talk to people were getting their lives back together. They were looking for work. They were getting back into the workforce. It wasn't the fear-mongering that we hear, that if you have it above the poverty line, somehow people are just going to want to, you know, hang out on JobSeeker. It's not the case. People want to contribute.
Right. So are you disappointed by the government's response so far? That's been reported anyway.
I'm very disappointed with the response so far. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and wait till the budget to see what measures are in there. The committee said we recognise that the budget is tight, so there could be a staged approach to ensuring that JobSeeker payments are going up over time. But you know, we've seen all sorts of commitments for other big ticket items like inland rail, hundreds of billions of dollars for submarines. We've got $250 billion of stage 3 tax cuts coming. This is an investment in Australia's future, in our families, in our communities, and in society, and the kind of society we want to be going forward. So I think it's really important for all of us to be pushing both major parties to take this seriously.
So just finally here, Senator, this report was basically the carrot to get your vote for IR reform. So do you regret giving that support now?
It was part of negotiations. The thing that I wanted to see is independent advice going to the government that is public, and we can now have this conversation on budget. We can see what they actually deliver on that advice, and then voters can hold them to account. If voters think that this is an issue, then they can vote at the next election and vote for someone who's going to hear that call and actually ensure that we are building the kind of communities and society that people want to be part of. So okay. I think it's a transparency measure, and I think over time it's going to be harder and harder for governments to continue to ignore expert advice.
Okay. Independent Senator David Pocock, really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much.